Greta was sitting by the window and smiling enigmatically. She had just talked to her daughter on the phone, and she suggested that her mother move in with her. Isabella was Greta's favorite child, but she was not the only one. Besides her daughter, the woman also had a son, but her relationship with him had long been ruined. He disobeyed his mother and married a woman who Greta didn't like at all. How much she dissuaded her son from this reckless step, even put him before a hard choice, either she or his fiancée. Still, her son chose love. In the end, he packed his bags and left for his beloved, and to this day, they are still not in touch. However, for his mother every year on her birthday, he regularly sent a card. Greta often told her neighbors that as soon as his son's wife started cheating on him, he would come back to his mother like a beaten dog, and she would take him in. Greta was very principled. She had once kicked her husband out for cheating and raised the children herself. She didn't marry again, since there were no worthy candidates in her opinion. Her daughter was nothing like her son. Isabella was obedient and always consulted her mother. A few years ago, the daughter and her husband bought an apartment in the city and moved there. Then they had a daughter, and now Isabella had invited her mother to stay with her to help with the daughter's upbringing while she was busy with her career. Interrupting the flow of memories, Greta got up and went to a neighbor's to arrange for her to look after the house, in case she would not like it in the city and she would want to return. A week later, Greta was waiting at the train station with her suitcase. She was very worried about how she was going to survive the trip, since the last time she'd taken the train was 30 years ago. She fumbled with excitement in her purse, constantly checking to see if her phone and documents had been stolen. Fortunately, Greta endured the trip well, and in the city, her daughter met her and brought her to her place. Greta really liked the room she was given. On the first evening, Isabella thanked her mother for agreeing to help her, because Isabella had recently started working and they were not yet able to get a nanny. And in the kindergarten, the girl was often sick. Greta was only happy to help her beloved daughter. It seemed that in the end, everyone would benefit from it. The daughter would be able to build a career, the granddaughter wouldn't get sick much, and Greta, who had hardly seen her granddaughter before, would get to spend a lot of time with her. And at first, it was like that. But after a few weeks, Greta realized that her granddaughter was very, very spoiled, and brought up completely wrong in her opinion. The girl didn't know the word no at all, and didn't react at all to her grandmother's words. Then Greta could not stand it and talked to her daughter, but to her great surprise, Isabella harshly replied that she had only been asked to look after the child, not to bring her up. The elderly woman was silent. In her own house, she could certainly argue, but it was her daughter's house and her rules. A year went by like that. One day over dinner, Isabella happily announced that she had finally found a suitable kindergarten for her daughter. Greta was very happy, but not for her daughter, for herself, because her relationship with her granddaughter didn't work out, and she was just tired of it. Every day when the door closed behind the girl's parents, all hell broke loose for the grandmother. The girl would not listen to her, was constantly rude, and tattled on her grandmother to her parents. And then in the evening, the daughter and her son-in-law would tell off the old mother. A couple of times the woman was so unbearable that she wanted to pack her bags and go home. But each time the children immediately began to persuade the old woman, saying that they could not do without her. Greta was feeling needed again, and everything continued as before. And now that her granddaughter no longer needed looking after, Greta began to pack her things to go back home. But she was in for a big shock. It turns out that her daughter and son-in-law had sold her house a year ago. When Greta heard the news, she looked from her son-in-law to her daughter in shock, and then tears streamed down from her eyes. "How could you? Where will I go back now?" "Don't be upset, Mom. Your house was empty and no one needed it. But one car wasn't enough for us. So we decided to sell your house, buy a car, and put the rest of the money in the bank for your granddaughter's education. Of course, if you don't like living with us at all, we can place you in a nursing home. But come on, it's better to live with us." "Isabella, but we agreed that as long as I'm alive, you won't do anything with the house. You promised me. How could you?" "Mom, but you came to live with us, and I thought you liked it here. And anyway, after all, the house is mine, and I did what I wanted. That's all. If you don't like something, I don't keep anybody in my house." The elderly woman was looking at her daughter and could not understand when she had made a mistake in her upbringing. since Isabella was able to do this to her own mother. Many years ago, Greta herself had made a deed of a gift to the house to her daughter. She wanted to get back at her son for his disobedience, but she ended up hurting herself. After all, the elderly woman had to put up with it because there was nothing she could do. The house was sold. Days passed for days, weeks for weeks. Greta very much missed her friends, who had remained in her hometown, and often asked her daughter to take her to see them. Isabella always refused, but finally, when she had to leave, she agreed. When they arrived, the first thing Greta did was visiting a neighbor. The woman was very happy to see Greta. Sitting on the terrace, the women were drinking tea, and the neighbor tirelessly told Greta about everything that happened in the town while she was away. Greta listened with rapture to all these stories about people she had known since childhood, and she was very sad that she had lost all this. Isabella was sitting next to her, but didn't take part in the conversation, being fully immersed in her smartphone. Suddenly, the neighbor asked if Greta would stop by to see her son Andrew, because at least in her old age it was worth making peace. Seeing the bewilderment on Greta's face, the neighbor explained that her son and his wife live in her old house. Hearing this, Greta quickly got up and left the house. She walked along the path to her old house. In the yard, she saw Nancy, her son's wife, whom she had not liked so many years ago. Greta called out to her, and Nancy, smiling, gestured for her to come inside. Upon entering the house, the elderly woman immediately saw her son and noted that he had grown up and matured over this time. The son came up and hugged his mother, and Greta could only utter how it was that her son had bought the house. It turned out to be very simple. Every year, Andrew sent postcards by registered mail for his mother's birthday. Last year, the card came back to him. The man became worried that something had happened to his mother. When he got here, he found out that the house was for sale and that she was living in the city with his sister. Andrew didn't want to lose the house because all his childhood passed here. With the help of his best friend, Andrew bought the house so his sister would not know who the buyer really was and not tell his mother. And over time, Andrew and his wife decided to move here. Greta listened and could not believe her ears, and when Andrew told her that she might always come back here and live with them if she wanted to, Greta burst into tears. She had nothing to say to her son. She was so grateful. Andrew hugged his mother to calm her down, and Isabella, who was watching this scene, slowly came out of the house. Her soul was somehow unpleasant. Probably her conscience had not quite fallen asleep in her yet. When Greta calmed down, she asked her son and daughter-in-law for forgiveness. Nancy also went over and hugged her mother-in-law, saying it was all in the past and there was no need to bring it up. Then 2 boys, about 5 years old, ran into the room, and Nancy told them to meet their grandmother. The boys immediately surrounded the older woman and began to tell her their stories in rapid succession. Greta smiled. Finally, there was peace and tranquility in her soul because she was in her place. Her daughter never came back, and she never returned the money for the house either. Her car and her bank account were more valuable to her than the family ties.